Hey everyone. For centuries, conspiracy theories have attempted to draw back the curtain on important world events, casting into doubt official accounts and accepted wisdom. While the internet has made the discussion and dissemination of conspiracy theories easier, suspicion over everything from Roman rulers to the moon landing has preserved for centuries. Today, let's know about some of the historical conspiracy theories that might shape our thoughts. Let's start the video, but before that, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. This is one modern conspiracy theory that casts doubt on just about everything in our history after around 614th century. This wild theory, known as the phantom time hypothesis, came about in the 1990s thanks to a man named Herbert Illig. According to Illig, Holy Roman Emperor Otto III and Pope Sylvester II added around 300 years to the calendar to place them in power in the year 1000. After deciding to manipulate time on a whim, they then concocted a vast conspiracy involving countless monks throughout the Western world who helped fill in the missing centuries with all sorts of tall tales about an emperor named Charles Magny and something called the Middle Ages, most of which Illig argues is basically ancient fan fiction. He points to perceived inconsistencies in the Gregorian calendar as an explanation for how 300 years could have been plucked from thin air. Many consider William Shakespeare the greatest playwright who ever lived, but to some, he is simply one of the great pretenders. So little is known about Shakespeare as a person. He was born in Stratford in 1564 as a son of a glove maker, married a woman named Anne Hathaway, and died in 1616. That examining his life in any detail is all but impossible. Conspiracy theorists have claimed that Shakespeare didn't exist at all and was instead merely a pseudonym for an accomplished and well-educated writer. One was by Delia Bacon, an American playwright, and the other by an Englishman named William H. Smith. Both argued that Sir Francis Bacon was actually the quill behind masterpieces like Hamlet, or that Shakespeare was actually a whole gaggle of writers using one pseudonym. The evidence in these books was a lack of evidence. The authors claimed that there was no written documentation that Shakespeare was well educated or that he ever penned a play. No plays bearing Shakespeare's name were published between 1609 and 1622. The belief that Shakespeare was not the author of works attributed to him has been voiced by several notable names throughout history, including Orson Welles, Sigmund Freud, and even Mark Twain. But the thing is, we do have evidence that Shakespeare was a real deal. There's written evidence that he was an actor and playwright, and his work is mentioned in multiple contemporary sources, included a 1598 book called Pallidus Tamia by a man named Francis Meres, where plays like A Midsummer Night's Dreams and Titus Andronicus are mentioned specifically. For years, Southern politics and members of the press claimed that Northerners were secretly encouraging revolts of enslaved people throughout the region. Another said Lincoln's first-term VP, Hannibal Hamlin, was actually part black and involved in a Northern plot to destroy the Southern way of life. After Lincoln was assassinated, the theories just kept coming. One of the most unlikely scenarios comes to us from an Austrian chemist named Otto Eisenschmidt, who published the 1937 book Why Was Lincoln Murdered? In it, Eisenschmidt proposed that the president was done in by his Secretary of War, Edwin Stanton. Eisenschmidt suggested that Stanton wasn't particularly happy with Lincoln's plan for Reconstruction, which Stanton felt was too soft. To get his more hardline approach underway, Stanton supposedly put the assassination plot in motion. According to Eisen Schimmel, Stanton did a number of questionable things in the days leading up to Ford's Theatre. He allegedly ordered Ulysses S. Grant away from the theatre on the night of the assassination. He also turned down Abe's request to have Major Thomas T. Eckert there for protection and closed all of the bridges into the city other than the one John Wilkes Booth used to escape. In Eisen Schimmel's version, Booth still pulled the trigger, but he was under the watchful eye of the vengeful Secretary of War. Of course, scholars haven't found any real evidence to back up these claims, but that didn't stop Eisen Schimmel's book from winding up as a part of Civil War curriculums at universities for years after it was published. Nero took control of Rome in 54th century at the age of 17. 10 years later, a fire broke out around the Circus Maximus, the chariot stadium. The blaze ravaged the city over 9 days, destroying 3 of its 14 districts and severely damaging 7 others. Was it an accident, or did the formidable ruler set fire to his own kingdom? Those who argue the latter point out it was convenient that Nero was safely tucked away in Antium and miles from the fire. Within the city partially destroyed, he could erect new buildings more to his liking, including one, the fanciful Domus Aurea. That would have been met with opposition among the social elite under normal circumstances. One of Rome's historians, Tacitus, who was just a child when the fire started, even claimed Nero merrily played his fiddle while Rome went up in flames. Tacitus and others relied on a number of unconfirmed accounts of the fire that may have been misunderstood or embellished along the way, though, and the fiddle had not yet been invented, but such details have not stopped suspicions that the young ruler was a bit of a firebug. Nero is recognized as one of the most heinous of the Roman emperors, a pretty competitive field. He's been blamed with varying degrees of evidence for killing his mother, wife, and stepbrother. And in the wake of the fire, he put countless Christians to death. Queen Elizabeth I, who ruled England for 44 years between 1558 and 1603, defeated the Spanish Armada, rejoined what had been a divided country, and encouraged the arts to flourish. What she didn't do was marry. The Queen refused any and all advances to enter matrimony, a policy that led to her nickname of the Virgin Queen. Her stance led some observers, including Dracula author Bram Stoker, to suspect she may have been a man. Stoker once visited the town of Bisley in the Cotswolds, where a May Day celebration involved a boy dressing as the May Queen in Elizabethan clothes. Intrigued by the ceremony, Stoker discovered a fantastic tale. The queen-to-be had visited Bisley in her youth to escape the plague, got sick, and died. Knowing her father, King Henry VIII, had a famous temper, the governess found a boy who resembled her charge and disguised him as Elizabeth when the king, who apparently could not readily identify his own daughter, came to visit. The deception was never discovered, and the unknown boy grew to rule England, disguising his masculine features with wigs, heavy makeup, and neck coverings. While Stoker popularized the story in the early 1900s, it had appeared during Elizabeth's reign, possibly as a way for male subjects to cope with the idea of having a female ruler. To some, the author of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland was no demure children's book author. He could have been notorious serial killer Jack the Ripper. That was the theory offered up by author Richard Wallace, who assembled a laundry list of suspicious and potentially incriminating facts about Carroll in his book, Jack the Ripper, Light-Hearted Friends. Wallace believes Carroll, born Charles Ludwig Dodson in 1832, experienced traumatic events in boarding school that would plague him for the rest of his life. He also believes Carroll hid secret messages in his books in the form of anagrams that confessed to his involvement. Carroll was also geographically close to the sites of the Ripper murders. Doubters pointed out that confessions could be extracted from Wallace's own words in the same fashion, including incriminating statements about murder, and even that Wallace was the secret author of Shakespeare's sonnets. Well, that's it for today. I hope you're liking Nerdies discoveries. Can't wait for the next video to learn more and be fascinated about. See you on the next. Bye.